Okay. So Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to come on my podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So just for anyone listening who may have been living under a rock, could you just give us a brief overview of, who you are and what it is you do right now?
Sure, I'm the chief sports scientist for Renaissance Periodization, known as RP Strength on Instagram. And we work with a ton of CrossFitters. And we basically do diet coaching and training coaching. And then we have a lot of digital products, like we do a lot of physique training to help sometimes folks that do CrossFit add a little bit of volume and muscle size to their training. And then one of the things we do is we make digital products like apps. So we have the RP Diet app, which I helped to design. And that is basically like a diet coach, except it's artificial intelligence. So it tells you when to cut your food and when to increase your food and keeps you on track to your goals. And so that's what we do. And I'm myself, I used to be a professor of sport nutrition and exercise science and all those things. And in my spare time, I do training for bodybuilding and grappling.
Great. So you must have broken the, like the time and space continuum with the amount of time you must find in a day to do all of those things.
Yeah, I guess I just don't have that many friends, so mostly I do work.
Yeah, I think most coaches might fall in line with that sort of behind the computer geek style that just know how to lift. Great. Well, as you mentioned, you work with a lot of CrossFitters, and so that's kind of how I want to just corner this entire episode around, really. And I guess we could pretty much let's start with diet. And when we're looking at a CrossFit athlete, how do you start with talking to them about their training, and how their nutrition plays a role, especially if they were looking to, let's say, get a little bit leaner to have a better body weight to strength ratio?
How we talk to them about their training or their diet?
Yeah, like how do you manage their nutrition around their training when it's so varied? Like how would you approach that conversation?
Yeah, so the good news is that nutrition doesn't have to be super, super tailored to the exact kind of training you're doing. Fundamentally, training is difficult and takes up nutrients and makes you fatigued. And nutrition supplies nutrients and reduces fatigue. And the timing is a part of the equation. So just generally, you would feed someone enough calories per day and enough proteins, carbs, and fats. When you have that out of the way, timing becomes relevant in CrossFit. You sort of want to make sure that they have enough energy to go into training. If the training is a very long duration, more than 2 hours, probably want to supply them with a training shake that does a couple of things. It supplies enough carbohydrates for energy and performance, supplies some protein for prevention of muscle loss and possibly an enhancement in delivering those carbs, and also some salt and some water to enhance hydration and enhance the deposition of both the protein and the carbs into the bloodstream. And then once you have the training shake figured out, there's a post-workout meal or meals that probably should, again, resupply a lot of the substrates that were lost during training and help start the recovery process. And so a lot of times, the thing about CrossFit that we need to know is, when do you train? When does your training session begin? When does it end? Thus how long it is. And how hard are you training on average during that time? And those are usually things that are not very terribly difficult to ascertain from people. Because it's not like, CrossFitters do some different stuff, but like, for example, if you do a workout of the day, like it's different every time. And sometimes we don't know what it's going to be, but it generally falls into the same category of movement. It's repetitive, explosive efforts. And it's generally not a lot of volume, but it's very intense. So, once we know that, we can supply nutrition pretty well. And then a lot of the folks we work with at RP are very, very high level CrossFitters. We have a bunch of people that go to the games every year. Those folks tend to come at it a little bit differently, where they know their workouts pretty well and their coaches know their workouts in advance. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those folks we take care of by supplying them much more finely detailed plans. And some of them even have been using the RP Diet app with great success, because a lot of the stuff that we do as coaches, if the athlete is sufficiently self-motivated and knows how to diet fundamentally pretty well, like they know what carbs, protein, fats are, they know how to pick decent foods, then the RP Diet app is something that works really, really well for them, because they can just do the stuff on their own and it responds really well to their constraints.
Yeah, you've built an app, I guess, that works purely as if they were looking at a mathematical model of weight loss or whatever, to be able to apply those changes. So as you said, a lot of the coaching will come much more down to the behavior change and habit change formation, as well as
Yeah.
where to put
Because you
their
can ignore
calories.
the app. You can lie to the app. You can ignore it. You can't really ignore or lie to a diet coach because they're going to catch on to you and say, "No, no." As the app can't really scold you, and you're not really trying to impress the app because it's AI. It doesn't
Yeah.
judge your morals. Though we're working on that. The coaches will judge you, and you know that, and that it's a human being on the other side, and that sort of advantage is a really, really big advantage that you may want to really, if you would like that out of a diet and an involved approach, a coach is really kind of the best way to go.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the app works really well until, as you said, you just ignore the notifications because it's just
Totally.
you
You're
can't
just like,
judge me. You can't judge me, app. I'm just going to turn that
yep,
notification off.
exactly, exactly.
Great. And as you said, you once you know the area of training that an athlete is doing, it then comes a case of, okay, like on average, your training is looking like this. If we're looking to put you into a calorie deficit, there's a lot of people who, with the diet coaching that's out there, people will say, right, we can diet hard or we can diet slow. It comes down to personal preference. With the training that a CrossFit is doing, most of the time they're bothered about their performance. So it must be a conversation of, look, we don't want to be doing anything too crazy because then we're going to be looking at more negative outcomes of muscle loss and performance drops as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. One thing we've had at RP over the years that we've been running this coaching company and doing the coaching is that possibly one of the most beneficial things to do as a coach, or even if you yourself are running a diet using the app or using another product, you got to try to figure out as a client and definitely as a coach what really the goals are and what your desires are, and then what the priority structure around them is. So,
Mm,
for example, I don't think anyone's going to say they don't want their performance to improve in CrossFit if they do CrossFit.
yeah.
Everyone is going to, if there's a genie in a bottle and Christina Aguilera manages to come around to get him out, I believe that's a requirement. So, and he comes out, pops out and he's like, look, like I'll give you a free wish just to tell you I know what I'm doing. And that means infinite performance increases. You're not going to be like, no, 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 let me change that. You're going to be like, wait, it's free. And you're like, yeah, shit, I'll take it. And then in addition to that, nobody really argues except for extreme cases around, against getting leaner.
Mm,
Right. And very often people don't argue against getting more muscular as well. Not as often, but very, very largely that's the case.
yeah.
So when you end up having sort of three, and then another one, these are very, very related to lean, but your weight loss, just seeing the numbers fall down on the scale, right?
Mm,
So a lot of times the folks will have these goals and they just sort of don't know which one they value the most. So we'll give you a sort of kind of summary as to how this works in real life. An individual will contact one of our coaches and we'll start a working relationship with them. And up front, our coaches all say, listen, what do you want? And they say, performance. I'm an athlete. I got the open coming up and so on and so forth. I got this competitions and I want to optimize my athletic performance. That's good. The diet that is involved in that, if they're not very over fat, the diet is going to be one that supports maintenance calories so that performance can be optimized. If they're even somewhat, their body composition is not amazing, but their impending competition is relatively close within several months, it's also a maintenance diet because it's too short of a time to build up a bunch of fatigue and interfere with training to try to diet off the fat.
mm,
Now, of course, if they're like, I want to optimize performance, but they work with you for 6 months and the competition is not until month 6, you can do a hell of a fat loss diet and then maintain into the competition. But a lot of times you can't, and you because you're engineering a performance diet, you can't also have the best fat loss. It's just two different diets. And then what a lot of times happens, not all the time, just some of the time, folks will go several weeks into the diet and will say, I'm not losing any weight. And we'll be like, well, yeah, we're on a maintenance diet. And they're like, yeah, okay, but like my abs aren't getting any sharper. Like my biceps don't look any like more round. And we're like, So how are your CrossFit events? And they're like, oh my God, I feel like a goddess. Like I just fucking smashed the gymnastics. I did my first kipping pull up ever. And we're like, huh? So that's really great. That's what we're going for, right? And they're like, yeah, but I want to get leaner. And we're like, So how do you judge, how much do you value performance versus leanness? And a lot of times too, in most individuals, that isn't even a trade-off they were aware that they had to make. So we have
Mm.
to explain to them, and we love that part of the process is explaining to people, no, seriously, it's awesome to be like, check this out. It's like a mind bender. You're like, here's the concept of trade-offs of fitness, because you've got to admit, like a lot of times, especially through popular media, which is how most people come into working out, there
Mm.
is not the understanding that there is a multifactorial fitness landscape in which being fit at one thing means you're not as fit as another. This particularly strikes CrossFitters
Mm.
because they're in fitness sport, and they're actually optimizing to get as fit as possible in every domain at the same time. And they also look to their best competitors and they see that they're very jacked and very lean. So to them, there's almost this view to many people of a one directional, like major arrow view that is just them at the beginning of this long road. And at the end of this road is fitness. And it's
Mm.
just one road and it's just one fitness. And they're just like, look, what trade-offs? Just get me further fucking up the road. I want to get closer to fitness. And we're like, yeah, but there's different kinds of fitness. So for example, if you take a figure Olympia bodybuilder, she's going to have an unbelievable physique that makes pretty much all the top CrossFitters look like they're kind of frumpy looking. I mean, like, to be honest, the shape, the symmetry, the leanness is outlandish.
Mm.
But she's not going to be doing anything remotely world class in her workouts. So it's kind of like, okay, so we could sort of go in that direction, or we could sort of go into the direction of performance, and your looks will be great, they will improve, but they're not going to improve as fast as possible.
Mm.
So once that talk has had and people are really sort of told, hey, listen, here are the trade-offs, and they're oftentimes not major trade-offs, but you can't have optimized performance if you have a diet, and you can't have optimized diet results if you're still interested in the highest level of performance. So to give you the other perspective, we have some people getting leaner and leaner. Like, yeah, my lifts used to be going up like 10 pounds a month. Now they're only going up like 5 or 2.5 pounds a month. Like, what's up with that? And we're like, well, that's fat loss dieting is, no, it's very difficult. It saps a lot of resources. And they're like, yeah, but like, I want to get stronger. And we're like, okay, do you want to get stronger a lot? Or do you want to lose fat a lot? And the answer, both, is not a valid answer, right? It's
Mm.
one or the other, and it's totally cool whichever one you pick. You got to go and carry through with it. And I think a lot of times there's another dynamic here where individuals don't actually want to admit to themselves what they want, because they have inculcated the idea that some of these goals are less generally valuable or intrinsically valuable. For example, especially in females, the idea that you want to be lean and that you're basically interested in looking better is a lot of times something that a lot of people in the community say you shouldn't value,
Mm.
right? Like, they say, don't worry about your body, just get strong and just get good performance. And some of these individuals will come to the dieting sphere or the training sphere, and they're like, yeah, fuck the scale and fuck how I look, and I just want to perform. I'm like a real woman, shit like that, which is all really good sentiment if you're serious about it. Because a lot of those people aren't serious about it. It turns out they really just do want to look lean. And we at RP are here to tell you that there's not a damn thing wrong with you wanting to look clean, as long as you're realistic, logical, and approach it in a safe and effective manner, knowing that once you reach your whatever goals, you have to stop, rest, reevaluate, and be very sane about things.
Mm-hmm.
So, because, who the hell is anyone to judge you want to look a certain way? Like, my God, like, what are we, is this first grade? Like, are
Yeah.
we like, right, like, this isn't like some kind of backwards, like, super totalitarian society we live in where, you gotta have the following value system. That's just BS.
No.
The United Kingdom, United States, are some of the freest countries in the world. You do whatever the hell you want. Nobody cares. The government doesn't care. Other people don't really care. Like, if you walk out in a street in London wearing all blue, precisely zero people give a shit. Like, if it's all red, precisely zero people give a shit, which is a beautiful thing. So if you want to lose fat and you're in a CrossFit class and everyone's talking about the open, and you're just like, yeah, I'm just getting leaner, there's not a damn thing wrong with that. And it's funny because if somebody in your class dares to say there is, it's like about a 30-second conversation to intellectually, like, just cause a massive upheaval in their way of thinking, and they just have no responses. Because they'd be like, well, you should be focused on performance. And you could just say, hey, no disrespect, but exactly what's wrong with me focusing on wanting to look good? And you can do the genie in a bottle thing. You'd be like, if the genie showed up and said that you could look good, would you really turn him down? Of course they wouldn't. Of course, it'd be just a good thing. And they could say, well, it leads to all kinds of disordered eating kind of image stuff. And you can make the true answer like, yeah, it's always a perilous thing. but you have to keep an open mind to it and make sure you're logical and approach it with a high degree of sort of reverence for the fact that you know these bad things can happen, and you always have to stay in touch with yourself and know why you're doing it, sort of for the right reasons.
Hmm.
But insofar as you're doing that, there's not anything wrong with it. And sometimes it takes weeks for people to be like, you know what? Because you know, basically, we'll write them. They say, "Hey, I want to be strong. I want to be fit. I want to be a great CrossFitter." We write them a diet that reflects that, and they become greater and greater and greater. And after a while, they're like, "I just, what about abs? What about arms? What about leanness?" And we're like, "What about it? Is that something you want? Because you told us you didn't." And we're not that confrontational, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
We say, "Yeah, that sounds okay, but that's not currently the goal, right?" And they go, "You know what? You're right. I should just shut up." And then a couple of weeks later, they come back and you know they've been in touch the whole time, but they come back to the topic and say, "You know what? Like I done some soul searching. I just fucking want to be lean." And we're like, "Listen, that sounds great. Just let us know. Would you like us to change the diet now?" And they say, "Yep." I say, "Okay, great. From now on, we're getting lean." And the way that we sort of first discovered that this was happening was people would say, like, for example, during the open, you know, they
Mm.
say like, "Hey, I'm getting ready for the open. I got like the open in 3 days or something." You know, like first open workout or something.
Yeah,
Well, you
great.
know, like they had been training with us and dieting for like some weeks, and then they're like, "The open's in 3 days." And I'm like, "Okay," and thank you for letting us know. Here's your schedule. And they're like, "What's all these carbs doing here?" We're like, "We're carbing you up for your event. Like you want to have a ton of energy and do your best." And they're like, "I was kind of hoping to lose another pound." And we're like, "No, no, no, we don't want to do that because we want
No.
you to be your best and nice and recovered and rested and fully fueled." And then it's this cognitive dissonance. They're like, so I'm going to get and gain weight. Like, yeah, you'll probably gain like a kilo or something just on body water. You'll feel incredible and you'll perform well. And then very often they're like, man, I just kind of want to do the workout and have fun with my friends, but I just like, we've been getting leaner this whole time. I just want to keep getting leaner. And then we have to be like, "Oh, okay. Are you sure?" And then a lot of times they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Great." It was, and then no looking back. And a lot of times it works out super well because not only do they get what they want, they can sort of come clean from a sort of moral, emotional guilt perspective of being like, "You know what? I want what I want. I'm an adult. There's not a damn thing wrong with it. I'm going to get what I want. I don't have to lie to myself or anyone else or try to impress people and tell them I've moved beyond, you know, my body as a notion of beauty. And like, it's just, I want to look like this. I'm going to do it." And that's really good.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think a lot of people get sucked into the whole, especially with the class mentality, open mentality, like that performance. But if their real desire is to lose body fat, then that needs to come first, as you said. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people get into training fundamentally because maybe they, enjoy the concept of it or the idea of it, but it'll be from an innate level of like, I want to look jacked, I want to look sexy, and
Yeah,
we just
totally.
we just need to be okay with that. And
Yeah, and there's nothing. The arguments against being okay with that are very interesting. Some of them have merit, but they often tend to break down under very close examination. A
yeah,
lot of them seem like, "Oh yeah, this is a good idea," but then you think about it a little more, and you're like, "Man, you know, there's all kinds of ways to live your life, and inclusiveness really means that you respect people for their decisions as long as they've thought them through, and they're relatively safe and healthy, and then you sort of respect." It's so funny because many times the same people that will say, you know, body image is a real bad thing and um, make, you know, guilt tripping people for being overweight is terrible.
mm,
Uh, we totally agree with that. I mean, holy crap, it's awful. And they're the same people that'll be like, you know, you shouldn't want to get lean. It's like, I'm pretty sure you just contradicted yourself. Like, so you're
yeah,
telling we should guilt trip people who want to get lean, but not guilt trip people who are not lean. That doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, these people aren't pro fat. They're just, I thought, pro letting people be left alone and be respectable without being harassed by everybody. So
mm,
like that means that if you are over fat and you are okay with it and you want to live your life and be left the fuck alone, I've 3 cheers and more powers to you. That's awesome. And also, if you are lean and just want performance, 3 cheers, more power to you. And if you want to get leaner and your reasons are sound and you've thought it through and you really care about your psychological health as well, hell yeah. We're not going to tell you that's not a good idea. It's just a fine idea. As many ideas you have to do with you, what you want with your own body.
sure. Yeah, it's all great points. And I mean, going forward then with these people who then look for fat loss, let's say they've taken your advice, they've lost the body fat, and now you're like, right, okay, it's been 12 weeks or 16 weeks, whatever. It's time that we take a break now. You know, we've been dieting for a long time. How do you address that with people? How do you get them to accept maintenance and bump calories back up? Because I know a lot of people definitely get caught in the, I still have, a few more pounds to lose. I want to keep going. And we can then get lost in this potential chronic dieting
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's a very tempting, especially when you're on a roll, to want to keep the momentum going and keep losing. I actually had a question yesterday. I did a Q&A thing on Facebook, and I had a question from an individual that basically said, I'm going, I know you guys say 12 weeks at RP. It's been almost 12 and I am just not hungry. I'm losing hella weight all the time. My performance is excellent. Should I just keep going? Can I just keep going? And then take a maintenance phase when the gains start or the losses start to be really difficult. What I told him was, honestly, my answer to you is no. Stop now. And the analogy I made was, if you're pushing, if let's say we're talking about World War II and the English and the German are fighting in South Africa, and an English tank battalion gets really far out and just blasts through German lines, and it's getting close to running out of supplies, should it go until it runs out of supplies, or should it stop to resupply so that it's never in danger? I think it's probably best to sort of stop, coordinate your defenses, resupply, and then, does that give the Germans some time to re-coordinate? Yes. But if you just run dry, you risk them just taking you over, and then all of it was for nothing instead of for a limited amount. Just the same way, if you push your diet until you break, the break is incredibly well documented, probably one of the most well documented phenomena in nutrition, of people breaking a diet, eating a ton of food that now is unbelievably delicious, does not satiate you hardly at all. All you think about it is food. All you hate training, you're burned out, your body movements themselves, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how much you fidget during the day, how many walks you take, it's all down. It's a literal recipe for weight regain almost exclusively as body fat. It's a real bad deal. So what ends up happening is you're basically saying, can I just keep going? Is the equivalent of being like, we can just go to we can take the tank battalion another couple of miles. What is the benefit of that? You get a couple more miles, and otherwise for diet, you lose a couple more pounds or kilos. What is the downside? The downside is that you can get reattacked. And the downside is that your weight in dieting can balloon back up, and you can just be like, well, I dieted for 12 weeks and I could have stopped then and kept all 10 kilos off. What I did was I dieted for 16 weeks and now I've regained 8 kilos and my net loss is only 6 kilos. So I pissed away 16 weeks for 6 kilos where I could have had 12 weeks and 10 kilos. I mean, it's open and shut, right? So what I told that individual is you should probably stop now and count your benefits and reorganize and do a maintenance phase so that you can come back with no diet fatigue and have another really easy dieting phase. Another example, this is not nearly the same because gambling is a little different, but you go to the casino and you win like 40 quid or some shit like that. Just leave. Just leave. If you keep going, you will lose your money. And that's kind of a similar idea with dieting, is you've had this almost lucky streak of incredibly 2 or 3 months. And you're not feeling any downside. Don't push it until you do feel a downside, because then your chances of success have diminished significantly for what seems to be something. It's not like we're going to disparage the 2 extra kilos you lost. They're great, but you could have just done that a little bit later. So one of the things, to answer your question directly, is how do we approach this with clients? We tell them this kind of stuff. We say, listen, here's why maintenance phases do what they do. We don't want to slow you down just to slow you down. Why the hell would we do that? We're a company that thrives. Half of our advertising is before and after pictures. Right? The leaner you look in the after picture and the more weight you've lost, the more money we make in the short term, because people go, holy shit, I want to look like that. Why in God's name would we tell you to stop your diet at 12 or 14 weeks if we could milk more out of you and get more money? Well, because we're really greedy and we want more money, not just now, but later and later and later. How do you have what in other words called a sustainable profit model? Well, you actually take care of your customer and you do what's good for their long-term best. And then they're just think you're amazing and they get a great service out of you. They refer to you to everyone. They're happy and healthy and everybody wins.
Yeah.
So the way we do that is we're not trying to get a customer like a runaway train, and then once they're no longer our property, we just let them crash. We have to make sure to say, look, hey, it's coming up, end of the diet, probably in now. Here's why. Here's the benefits of maintenance. Once people hear about all the benefits of maintenance and the downsides of not taking it,
Hmm.
a lot of times they're like, just tell me what to do.
Sure.
Because they're like, well, I don't want to rebound. And it's really easy to real talk people too. I love this concept of real talking someone where you sort of take away like the pleasantries of online interaction and you say, look, we're both human. Let's just talk like humans. Here's the deal. How many people do you know in your life that have lost a lot of weight and then gained it right back? And these folks start to think and they're like, Aunt Betsy, Uncle Adam, Jen from down there. Everyone I know has done that. You're like, we're not lying to you that this happens. And they're like, yeah, okay, it happens a lot. We're like, do you want to just regain the weight? And they're like, no, of course not. They're like, this is what we invented maintenance for. This is how come a bunch of scientists and diet practitioners literally came up with the idea of maintenance phases, not on purpose, not for some kind of nefarious goal, which wouldn't make any sense anyway. And
Mm.
it's funny, a lot of times we offer individuals guided maintenance, which they pay us for coaching,
Hmm.
but we also offer them completely free maintenance where we set them up with the tools they need because they're already good at dieting. They've been doing it for 12 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
But we just give them a plan of how to come back by themselves, and that's completely free. It's like, we're not even trying to take your money. Just go and do maintenance, even if it's on your own.
Sure.
And of course, some people are like, yeah, nah, I'm going to keep you around because I don't trust myself on my own. And then once that is the case, the easiest way to go about maintenance is this. As soon as the diet over, you bring them up close to their predicted maintenance calories, which is lower than their normal maintenance because they've had some diet fatigue build up.
Yeah.
And once they're there at those calories, you keep them there until, so they're going to gain weight for like a week or two, and then they're going to actually start losing weight again
Sure.
because the metabolism starts to speed up. And if they're good on their diet, it starts to just not enough food.
Hmm.
Then we bump it up again. They go back up a little bit in weight, then the weight flatlines, and then it falls again, and then we bump them up again. Like 2 to 3 months of that, and we've had like 5 or 6 bumps, and they're eating a ton of food. They feel hardly diet fatigued at all or not at all. And they're ready to either have really great training at their new low body fat and eat relatively freely, although with consciousness,
Hmm.
or they're ready for another fat loss diet. So the cool thing about maintenance is you don't ever have to like smash food into them and be like, it's okay, just eat the food. You say, hey, listen, we're not going to give you any more food until you lose weight again. And then 2 days later, they're like, I'm at an all-time low. And we're like, okay, well, we need to give you more food. And they're like, this is great. I get more food every couple of weeks and I'm not even gaining weight. It's phenomenal. So it's an easy sell once you start the process, but the starting the process is tough precisely because some people really react negatively to that first couple of pounds of weight
Right.
gain from just water. And also they react negatively to the idea that they have to just basically try very hard but not get any losses.
Mm.
So maintenance is, especially in the first several weeks, means you're very diligent on your diet, but your weight doesn't go down; it just stays about the same. That's tough to do psychologically, right? Because a lot of people, where they get their motivation from is that the scale is going down all the time.
Mm.
When you're losing a couple pounds every week, gee, it's so easy to keep dieting. But when you're maintaining, you're like, man, I don't even know why I'm doing this. But if you stay the course, then it really is a huge benefit because the battle isn't over when you've reached your new weight loss low. It's not. The battle is over when you've reached a new weight loss low and you've kept it off for several months through a regimented maintenance phase. Then you can relax with a healthy lifestyle and you'll keep the weight off.
Yeah. So you would recommend that maintenance phase to be similar time frame of like 8 to 12 weeks of bumping things up every couple of weeks, or would it be client dependent?
So basically, yeah, it's a good question. We've done quite a bit of thinking about this at RP because the way we see it is this: if we give too short of a maintenance phase as a theoretical beginning, then we just risk setting up a lot of people for failure.
Mm.
But the plus side of a short maintenance phase is it doesn't scare people as much and it lets you diet like more often during the year and lose more weight total. So if it turned out that the reality of maintenance phases was that you could only take a month after 16 weeks or 12 weeks of dieting and fully reestablish most of your parameters and be ready to diet again, that would be amazing, right? Because you could squish like 3 or 4 diets into a year and then you lose a ton of fat and really retransform your body.
Mm.
On the other hand, so basically like there's temptation to make it as small as possible, but then there's the warning that if you make it too short, then you just won't have time to do everything you need to do, and you'll set yourself or your client up for a really nasty diet rebound on their second diet or something. Because it's interesting, you could do maintenance phase for a month and the people sort of feel pretty good. And sometimes your clients try to talk you into be like, I'm ready to go. They know they're not ready. You know they're not ready, but they sort of just get really antsy. And then you put them through a diet, and after 3 or 4 weeks, they're like, my energy is total crap. I can barely do my workouts. I'm on no food pretty much, and I'm not losing weight nearly as fast as I thought. And that diet that they just did, the one they're in, is a huge, giant, maybe not even waste of time, but actual net negative use of time.
Yeah.
It just requires that much longer of a maintenance phase to fix. It's almost the exact analogy would be like coming back too early after surgery and opening up your stitches again, doing something stupid. It's like,
Yeah.
so now we're not like, this isn't that you messed up, but it's okay. We have to restitch you, and now it's going to take you again as long to recover. So this training you just did is use. It's not that it's worthless. It's the negative worth. You're better off not doing it. It's not
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
oh, I did it, but I paid for it. The cost is more than the benefit. So after looking at a bunch of the scientific literature, which mostly says that maintenance takes a really, really, really long time, months and months and months for full recovery, we sort of made the idea that, or came up with the idea that maybe full recovery is not necessary for 2 to 3 back-to-back diets. It might be necessary for many, many, many diets back-to-back. But mostly complete recovery seems to occur in proportion to the length of the diet. And, based on that, some people do recover faster. And especially if it's your first diet or you were very over fat, you don't actually need that long to recover. In addition to the fact that if you don't lose much weight physically, a lot of times the diet fatigue just isn't that high. So
Mhm.
when someone loses weight from 300 pounds, do you prefer pounds or kilos?
Either's fine. Well, kilos
Which
is
one?
what we usually work in.
Kilos. Oh, yeah, sweet. So if someone starts at 150, like they weigh 150K, and they diet down to like 140 or 135, I mean, gee, they're just not going to have that much diet fatigue as much you would expect, because they still weigh 140 or 135 kilos. It's still a very big. They're not starving. Their metabolism not dead. They're still burning 5,000 calories a day, so on and so forth. So for them, maybe less. But again, the downside of doing a maintenance phase that's not sufficiently long is that you have a negative next diet experience, and you need just as much time and more to fix the problem.
Sure.
Sometimes you can actually regain all the weight back before you do, and then you're back to literally square one. The downside of having a maintenance phase that's too long is that you just have really great training for that much longer, and you really ensure that you're not going to rebound back. So can the client get bored or frustrated if they're not losing fat? Yes, but those are things you can talk out of. You can
Mm.
have a discussion with coach, and they can talk you out of being frustrated because, look, it's part of the long-term plan. You can't talk your way out of diet fatigue. Like if you
No.
just crashed and burned on a diet, there's nothing to say. Like just your hormones are all messed up, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it except wait. So based on all that together, our recommendation is that the diet maintenance phase post fat loss diet should be between 2/3 and 1x the length of the diet, which means if you dieted for 12 weeks, it's between 8 and 12 weeks that your
Yeah.
maintenance phase should be. We usually say, like, if it's going to be 8 weeks, you had better be damn sure that nothing bad happened. Like there's no temptation. I'll tell you, I can actually give you a much more concrete um, sort of logical tool to use to decide between the 2/3 and the 1x.
Sure.
2/3 are basically 8 weeks for a 12-week diet. Is if you finished your 12 weeks and you honestly can't tell yourself that you're at all diet fatigue, then you do 8 weeks of maintenance. Like basically you finish the 12 weeks and you're in the position that the guy that I was talking about that asked me the question on Facebook. Your
Yeah.
training's incredible. You're not super hungry. You haven't lowered your food a ton. You're just momentuming away. Then I think for 8 weeks later, you can be 100% recovered.
Hmm.
If you, what about 1x? Well, 1x is like your average scenario where you're pretty beat up and pretty diet fatigued, pretty hungry, pretty lazy, because your body's not moving around like it used to because you're trying to conserve calories, and your calories have been cut pretty low. If that's the case, you need to do roughly 1x, right? So like 12 weeks of maintenance, which seems like a long time, but remember, we're trying to permanently get rid of this fat weight. To do that is tough because very few people do it. And then I will have to say that there are situations in which you have to do longer than the 1x, 1.5x, sometimes 2x. And that's situations in which you are very, very resistant to fat loss. And that even shorter diets, like you can't survive a 12-week diet.
Yeah.
You can survive an 8-week diet, and by the end you have every single symptom of diet fatigue in spades, we're not going to tell you, hey, just do another 8 weeks, that's 1x and you'll be fine. We're going to say you might need to do 12 weeks. And a lot of times people don't want to hear that. So we have to circle back to the discussion of, look, there is no con here. There is nothing where we're just trying to look out for your best interest. It's like you ask, you're taking antibiotics by your doctor's prescription, and they make you feel like a little sick to your stomach. And you say, doc, can I stop taking these? And the doctor's going to be like, no, I really think you should finish them so that you can get 100% better. And you're going to be like, so what's this guy's edge? Like, does he benefit from big pharma, like, shipping him money for antibiotics? Like, no, that's not how it works at all. It's highly illegal and it does not happen. So what is his benefit? He doesn't give a shit. He just wants you to not be sick anymore.
Yeah.
Like, he could tell you, look, you could stop the antibiotics right now. There's a chance you'll be fine. There's a chance you won't, and you'll be even more sick. And we'll have to give you real antibiotics in the hospital that make you way more sick. And then what, right? So it's like, there's no upside for the doctor to give you antibiotics. He's just coming from a place of, like, he's just trying to make you better. Same idea with diet coaching and maintenance phases. Like I said, for pre and post transformation photos, we would love it if there was just, you could just diet for a year straight. Oh my God, we have the mathematical tools to diet you for that long if anyone could survive it. Can you imagine the transformation pictures we'd have out of that? I mean, it would be insane. 90 kilo loss or something like that in 2 years. That would be something really impressive, but it's just not something that is a good idea.
No, I think what you said there about talking to people about the benefits and the negatives, and being like, look, we've done this with a lot of people. We have no ulterior motive. And I think if you were talking about that genie in a bottle, then another wish that people would grant would be like, hey, I'm going to give you more food every 2 to 3 weeks, and you're going to maintain and maybe even drop weight. Like, how does that sound? Everyone's going to be like, hell yeah, I want to take some of that.
Sounds super good. It sounds good, unless you're in a diet momentum mindset where you're like, I can keep going. And it's just a realization of wisdom to not. It's like, a parent, if it's up to a child to figure out if they want to go to the bathroom before they stand in line for their favorite roller coaster, a child can say, I don't really want to go to the bathroom right now, so I'm okay. But a parent knows better, and that's wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience. It's knowing, there's a chance you'll be fine. There's also a chance you'll want to shit yourself by the time you get on the roller coaster, and then actually shit yourself on the roller coaster. So let's just go to the bathroom right now. It's going to take 5 minutes. And we're going to just go in there, and if nothing comes out, nothing comes out. And a lot of times you take a kid in the bathroom, they have a real productive poop, and a bunch of urine comes out too. And they're like, okay, I'm ready. And like, so now you're actually ready. And now we go stand in line for half an hour. So same idea with dieting. There's no mom is not trying to prevent you from going on the roller coaster. As a matter of fact, she doesn't give a shit, because she just checks her iPhone for work emails while you stand there either way. That she just doesn't want you to have a bad time. So, and she's capable of thinking ahead. Every single client is not like a child. They are very much capable of thinking ahead, and they often do. When it comes to dieting, it's a hazy environment with lots of temptations and confusion, and there's a bunch of people telling you don't have to think ahead. Like, just take this supplement and you'll lose a bunch of fat, and you don't have to take maintenance breaks, and these results are yours. So a lot of times the coach has to be like, look, like, this is the way we're supposed to be going. And the client says, yeah, I know. And then both people do the maintenance phase, and really, really good results come in handy.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever heard a maintenance diet phase being compared to a child going to the bathroom in a roller, before a roller coaster.
An amusement park, yeah.
That's brilliant. And I mean, fantastic, Mike. I mean, it's great to talk so much about diet side of things. I think we've covered a lot there. Like, be clear on your goal. If you've got weight to lose, do fat loss first. That maintenance phase is a great way to then focus on performance as a CrossFitter if you do want to have that double sphere attack. If we talk a little bit more about training, because we talked a little bit about the start about varied training with CrossFitters, and leaving the sort of class CrossFitters aside, because they're just going in an hour a day, it's fun, whatever. If people are like, right, I want to do open gym, I want to create my own plan, I need to get better at endurance, but I also need to get stronger. What does that, how do they start looking at their training? Because I mean, firsthand, they should probably get a coach, but in terms of trying to get across multiple modalities, surely there needs to be some more planning.
Yeah, great question. So in other words, you're asking what would their coach have them do if they hired a coach?
I guess I guess for the people listening who potentially are like they're trying to work on their weaknesses as well, but they're going in and crushing themselves with row repeats and then doing like 5x5 back squats. It's like you kind of got to say to people, look, you've got to focus on one area at a time. We can't draw everything up at once. Briefly, I'm not asking you to draw
No, totally. No. But by all
a
means,
training
I've got
phase.
I've got two good tidbits, three good tidbits.
Go for it.
First good tidbit is you have a maximum recoverable volume per week and per session, and you can't exceed it. Otherwise, you won't recover and you won't improve in performance, and you'll overreach, and then you'll probably get hurt or just have really bad results and have to take a lot of time off to come back. So know what your max is that you can tolerate, and understand that anything you do more within that constraint of how much work you can do, you have to do less of something else. So if you're going to do more squatting, you might have to do less cleans. If you're going to do more bike work, you have to do less pool work, and so on and so forth. But once you know how many hours roughly of hard training you're able to do per week, then you can work within that. Point number two is, if you want to improve at something, you have to understand just easy concept of maintenance volume and minimum effective volume. Maintenance volume is how much of doing something is required for you to not get any worse at it. You won't get any better, just not any worse. And minimum effective volume is how much you have to do of something to actually start to get better at it. So what you have to do is pick, what you want to get better at, and figure out the minimum effective volumes for all of those things. It's not that hard to figure out. You're like, I don't get any better at gymnastics if I do it once a week. So clearly I need to do it 3 times a week or twice a week at least. So there you go. So once you've put together your minimum effective volumes of everything you want to do, you may find that all of that added up is within your weekly maximum recoverable volume. And then that's sweet. It's easy. You just get better at everything at the same time. Beginners fall under that category, right? You're like, how do I get a beginner stronger, leaner, faster, more endurance, more explosive, and better technically at gymnastics? So like, just have them go to 2 CrossFit classes a week and they'll get all that. Like, holy shit, right? But eventually, even when they're training 20 hours a week, there's just not enough ability to recover from training or enough time in the day for all of everything they want to work on to fit at least above its minimum effective volume. Then what you have to do is take the stuff that you don't want to improve right very now, put it at maintenance volume. So just maybe 1 time a week of gymnastic stuff for 15 to 30 minutes, practice your normal movements, just enough so you don't get rusty at them, period. Maybe you would do the same for your core strength, squats, bench presses, deadlifts, overhead presses. And then the rest of the training time is spent training minimum effective volume and above for whatever you do want to prioritize, like, running or swimming or rep work or whatever it is. Most advanced athletes have to make those decisions. But the thing is, you say, well, we're not getting better at other stuff. Well, this is the thing. You train everything, but some things you train at maintenance volume to not get worse at. Some things you train at minimum effective volume to get better at. And then every several weeks to several months, depending on what factor we're talking about, you take something that was being trained hard at MEV or above, and you lower it to maintenance volume. And you take something that was maintained and you elevate it to minimum effective volume. So by that, you trade out some characteristics. And the easiest example, like, let's say you're training strength and endurance, just 2 things to make it easy. You train mostly endurance and very little strength for like 4 weeks, and then you switch gears and train mostly strength and very little endurance. During the time that you're not prioritizing strength or endurance, they're not getting any worse because they're at least being trained to maintain. But during the time you are training them, they're getting better. So it's kind of like this one goes up and 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 this one goes up, so on and so forth. So you end up sort of you're sort of stair climbing away to being better and better, because you're faced with a fundamental constraint of, I want to get better at everything, but I don't have enough wherewithal in the week to do it. That means you go several weeks getting better at a couple of attributes, and then several weeks getting better at a couple of other attributes. We can get into the discussion of how to choose the time scales, but that's a bit more technical.
Yeah, sure.
Generally speaking, you're going to get in and get out of various phases and various phases of focus. So when you ask people like CrossFitters, do they always do the CrossFit workouts? Do they always do everything? They do, but there's going to be times where they really push one thing and really back off another, and times where they really push another thing and back off that thing that they were pushing really hard.
Perfect. Yeah. As you said, it's just about, if we're going through a strength phase, let's push strength workouts up. Let's bring everything down to MEV, just to hit it once a week, whatever, just to keep it keep us moving. Right now, we're strong as shit. Let's apply that to gymnastics. Let's up the gymnastics, bring the strength down. Same thing with endurance. You could go aerobic, anaerobic, do the same thing. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people listening will know exactly sort of what you were talking about. We can always
Yeah.
go on.
Sorry, I'm sorry. So the third thing, I promised three
Oh,
things. I don't
yeah,
want
that
to
was
let
it.
anybody down.
Go
So
on.
the third thing is how to structure your workouts within the day of the week, and you have basically two little rules to follow. They're super straightforward. First, you want to do earlier in the week, however you conceptualize your week. So when you're strongest and when you're most awake and alive and least fatigued, you want to do your stuff that is prioritized minimum effective volume or above first.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And later in the week, and if it's a day later in the day, you want to do your maintenance stuff because that's easy. You should always get that stuff taken care of, no problem. And the second component is you want to make sure that you do your most intense stuff earlier in the day or the week and your less intense stuff later. By intense, we mean literally like how much energy you're exerting at any 1 second,
Mm-hmm.
which means things that require jumping, lifting really heavy, Olympic lifts, gymnastics really require a ton of energy and throughput per unit time. They should be done first, because you can always get on a cardio bike and just go to town on that thing later, and you still get all that great adaptations if you don't push yourself to the limit. But if you don't push yourself to the limit on gymnastics and weightlifting, just not much happens. If someone says, do you want to run 5 miles and then do gymnastics, or do you want to do gymnastics and run 5 miles? The second option is way easier than the first. It just gets you quality training of both.
Of course, yeah.
Like when you're already tired, you still get a lot out of endurance training, because now that you're tired, your endurance training can even be almost as good as it ever was because you're tired, and that's the whole fucking point. But being tired and coming into really heavy weight training basically means that you won't be able to train as heavy and you won't be able to get as good.
Yeah.
So those two things in combination kind of lay out your training week. And just to add a last little mini point there, that third point had 3 subpoints, is you want to make sure that you're not spreading all of your volume evenly through your week, but that you're taking distinct rest day, and the days either leading up to or after the rest day should be the easier workout. So basically you have your hardest, your most explosive stuff as minimum effective volume, in the minimum effective volume range and above, Monday, Tuesday. Then just an example, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll have your work capacity stuff, more the endurance stuff that's also being trained from MEV to MRV, not maintenance stuff, just really hardcore, but not as explosive and not as demanding per unit time per second as the gymnastics, weightlifting, strength lifts, etc. So that's that's Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, Saturday, you might be doing your maintenance work, where it might be all the stuff you put on the back burner. You're just kind of getting it done. No big deal. These are easy workouts. Sunday you have off. And then by Monday next week, you're super rejuvenated, super ready to go, and you can put in really, really hard workout. The bad way to do it would be to evenly cluster the hard work, so that there's never a time during the week where you're really able to relax, bring down fatigue, and set yourself up for the next week. And if you have nagging injuries and stuff, they're just going to keep getting hurt all the time, as opposed to having distinct times where you put the pressure on them and then really take it off. You can heal much more completely. It's almost like this. If someone offered you, do you want to work 8 hours a day and then have weekends off completely, or do you want to work 6 hours a day but have to work every day? We know what the answer to that is from organizational psychology. The answer is 8 on, 2 off, or 5 on, 2 off, because people need distinct downtimes to really, really heal and recover. They can't just do an even amount of work all the time, because that fatigue creeps up on you, and then eventually in the work setting you just go insane, and in the training setting you just overreach, overtrain. So that's how I would put together a training plan, generally speaking, for someone really interested in high-level CrossFit.
Yeah. And I think that's perfect as well, because people just get sucked into that whole idea of they want to train everything all the time. And they're like, oh, if I wrote my weaknesses down on a piece of paper, I'd run out of space. And then they're training every day, and they're getting sucked into that. We're working kind of hard every day, as opposed to like, we're working really hard, we're working sort of hard, we're working not very hard, we're resting, rinse and repeat.
It's interesting, the difference between how very good athletes train in CrossFit, many of them, not all, and how regular folks train trying to emulate good athletes. We happen to coach a bunch of them at RP, especially in their nutrition, so we see their detailed training, and having colleagues with a lot of people who coach top CrossFitters in their training. CrossFitters in training, when they're at elite level, almost always have a plan, because they're not actually trying to go in and have hard workouts or moderate workouts or light workouts. That's their coach's job to figure out. They are told what to do. Here is Monday's workout, AM. Do this, do this, do that. If you get all that done, you're good to go. That sometimes means it's a really hard workout. And sometimes the Thursday workout's really moderate, but the athlete doesn't even see it like that. It's not an emotional thing for the athlete. The athlete looks at a sheet of paper and goes, this is what I need to do. Got it. A lot of these people are machines. They're just going to do whatever it takes. We had one of our guys that works for RP as our camera guy, and he went to go film some of the Icelandic CrossFitters that we have as athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Mike, I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. They did like 10 sets of cleans, and then they were like all smiles, and then just did 10 sets of squats, and then they went and ran. And he was like, they just kind of did it. And it was like, yeah, like, you know, they weren't like, you know, like, oh, hardcore, oh, I'm going to train hard. They're not training for catharsis. They're not training for emotional, like being able to release oneself. They have a checklist. They have a to-do list. They got to get stuff done. It's more seeing training as a passion at work than it is seeing it as pure entertainment. Because a lot of times people are like, I'm just going to, like you said, train sort of hard all the time. A lot of that's emotional. They just kind of want that release. They want to feel like they're checking the boxes.
Yeah.
Right. But it's better to actually check the boxes. It's sometimes harder, but more effective because the boxes can be logically constructed.
Sure. And then you're going to just get so much better training adaptations. You're going to get better results. So it's going to make you feel better long term.
Which is kind of the whole point, I thought, you know.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you don't really care if you get good or not, and if you just do CrossFit for catharsis, that's totally cool. Just go to regular classes.
Yeah.
Right. But if you want to get better, you can go to regular classes if you're a beginner. But when you're really advanced, you're going to have to do some stuff on top of that that is logically determined. And it's not a matter of, well, I feel like doing this. Like, what is on the to-do list? And if someone asks, how do you generate a to-do list? Well, that's the art and science of coaching. Is either you coach yourself or you have a coach that knows how to put together a to-do list. I coach myself in bodybuilding, and I have a to-do list every time I go to the gym. It's a matter of getting these things done. It's not a matter of, I feel like, you know, this and that. Like, you know, I could feel great and I don't need to train that much and it's a bad thing. Or I could feel not so great and I undertrain like crazy and that's also a bad thing. Yeah, auto-regulation's good and adjusting the loads a little bit to how you feel is good, but you shouldn't just be picking workouts based on, I feel like this is a good idea.
No, it's very different to just be like, I don't feel like it today versus like, right, my coach is giving me this. I'm going to slightly adjust it based on, you know, however I'm feeling or I don't feel like I've got that in me. Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again for taking the time. Where can people find more from you and RP Strength as well if they want to get more stuff?
The RP Strength is right in the name. At RP Strength on Instagram is where to find us. And there's tons of links to the website and the app and all of our digital products and all of our coaches. Myself, I'm at RPDRMIKE, RP Dr. Mike on Instagram, and Mike Israetel on Facebook. Although Facebook, Facebook's kind of dying on us.
It's on the way out, yeah. Screw Facebook.
I love Facebook because it allows for long form posts. Like you can post several pages of stuff and really informative. And nowadays they just like, I post on Facebook, I get 5 likes. I post on Instagram, I get 500. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you can look at me. I still post stuff on Facebook, but who knows how long that's going to continue. And that's really where to find us. And hopefully they don't kill Facebook.
Yeah, great. Cool. Well, I'll link all of that up as well. So Mike, thanks again for coming on and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you as well.